In this episode, the triple threat shoulder approach. Delts for days.
The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the bacon is sizzling. Welcome to the Daily Swole.
Welcome everyone to episode 193 of the Daily Mother Swole. Yeah, if you're joining me live, welcome. You get to watch the gain train grow live. Swole, that's right. Remember, every day at 12 noon Eastern time, live on Periscope and Facebook. Remember, Facebook people, remember, click live notifications at the top of the broadcast. Make sure you're getting those notifications when I go live. Otherwise, you might miss the Swole. You can't really miss me. The satellites don't miss me. They pick me up from space. GPS I just turn off. It always knows my location. On Periscope, make sure that you also have your notifications on. Thank you for joining me on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube at Swolenormous. If you've been watching on YouTube lately, you know that I've added in some B-roll. I'm throwing in workout footage, vlog footage in the top corner so you can kind of watch the Daily Swole, watch some other cool stuff at the same time, kind of zone out, get into the... Let me know what you think about that in the comments or send me a snap message. Let me know what you think about the YouTube kind of splicing in, showing like a little picture-in-picture while you're watching the Swole, just so it's not all audio. I've been mixing it up a little bit. And thank you for joining me. Also, SoundCloud and iTunes if you want to catch the podcast. If you can't watch the Swole show, I was going to say Swole show and Swole. If you can't watch the Daily Swole, you can listen to the Daily Swole. So if you can't watch me on YouTube, you can't catch me on Periscope or Facebook Live, you can catch me on SoundCloud. Just listen to the podcast, tune in, and iTunes or SoundCloud. So great apps and great way to absorb the information. Today's episode, 193. Yeah, I know, we're getting close. 193, called the Triple Threat Shoulder Approach. Triple threat shoulder approach. Going to talk a little bit about deltoids today. Going to talk a little bit about getting those shoulders absolutely yoked and some stuff about the shoulders and the deltoid that I want you to think about when you do your training. First off, we got three parts of the shoulder. We got the anterior, the medial head, and you have the posterior. So there's three parts, front, side, and rear. I'm just going to refer to it as that because that's basic, that's easy to remember, that's easy to understand, it's easy to comprehend. I'm not going to get too detailed into the deets, into kinesiology, but I want to get my point across that there are three different points, three parts. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, three parts of the shoulder. The front of the shoulder does flexion and internal rotation. So the front deltoid is going to bring the arm up to the front. The medial head of the deltoid is going to bring the arm out to the side. And the back of the shoulder is going to push the arm from the front to the back when it's at 90 degrees, so horizontal abduction, moving the arm away from the midline. It's also going to do some extension, pushing the arm back behind the body, and it's also going to rotate the arm out to the side, like when you're twisting your arm, external rotation. So you have a couple different actions in the posterior, and you have a couple actions in the front and the medial, but they're different. So just doing shoulder exercises doesn't cut it. A lot of people ask me about shoulders. How do you get bigger shoulders? It's a tough area to grow because the shoulder muscle gets worked in a lot of activities. Anytime you move your arm, driving the car, anything, your shoulder's getting worked. So there's a lot of type 1 fiber activity. And it's hard to bulk up the shoulders. So generally, because we're doing everything to the front, we do a lot of bench pressing, do a lot of pushing movement. We're always driving. You're at a computer. You're texting on your phone. And you don't do anything behind your back. The front of your shoulder gets overdeveloped generally. That's very common. You see a lot of bodybuilders looking like Quasimodo, all internally rotated, anterior deltoids all jacked up, and it looks weird. It actually looks weird. So because you have an anterior deltoid overdevelopment, it's going to give you an imbalance. It could also lead to shoulder problems. But aside from the injurious standpoint, because I talked a lot about shoulder injury and balance and creating neutrality in the shoulder, I want to talk a little bit more about aesthetics because it's also going to look like shit. There are different benefits to working the front, middle, and the rear, or the front and the lateral and the rear. The front's going to get overdeveloped in general. It's going to make you only look good or big from the front and from the side, but that always or usually gets overdeveloped. The medial, okay, the lateral part of the shoulder, is going to make you look bigger from the front. It's going to give you a little bit more width. It's going to give you that deltoid cap, which is very important. It's going to give you that V taper if you have a tighter waist. It's going to give you a little more width in the upper body. That's really important for the aesthetic appeal of looking bigger. The posterior deltoid, in my opinion, is the most important part of the shoulder. It's to create the most balance for the health of the shoulder and for the alignment of the shoulder joint. But it's also going to give you the most aesthetic appeal, giving you a little bit of a posterior shoulder cap and give you more width and thickness from the side and from the rear. If you want that 3D look, if you want to look bigger, then you need to work at the posterior deltoid. If you're only working the front and the side, you're going to have some better results. You're going to have some better visual appeal if you work the side, but leaving out the rear is going to be the biggest difference. Most people underwork the posterior deltoid because you can't see it in the mirror. And I did an episode called Mirror Muscles, and if you're not working the posterior deltoid, you're not only setting yourself up for an injury risk, you're also going to set yourself up for a pretty poor looking physique with a nice sloped, flat posterior deltoid. And it's just not visually appealing if you're going for that bodybuilding, that physique type look. And most people in the gym want a certain look. They want to look a certain way. That's not being superficial, that's being a fact. You go to the gym not to be healthier. 99% of people go to the gym not to be healthier. They go to the gym to look a certain way. Yeah, being healthier might be on their list. It might be in the back of their head. Okay, I'm going to be healthier. The main reason people go to the gym is to actually look a certain way. And that means aesthetics, that means visual appeal, that means flow with the upper body, that means flow with the muscle connections and the tie-ins from the shoulder to the tricep and so forth. And that's going to relate to the posterior deltoid being a more important muscle to focus on. So more thickness and aesthetics from the side and rear. I always recommend more rear work. Now, what does this mean for you? What does this mean for you and for your training? Well, that means that you should front load. Now, don't confuse this with front deltoid. You should front load your rear and side deltoid training in your workouts. Don't necessarily ignore the front, but start with rear and side deltoid. Work them either more frequently during the week, setting them up on back day or on a separate shoulder day, but work the deltoid from the back and from the side first. So if it's shoulder day or it's your time to work that area, focus on those areas that you need to bring up and kind of ignore the front for a while. I generally don't do a lot of anterior deltoid training. I don't do a ton of isolated shoulder training as well, but I focus a lot more on side and posterior, which is why I have a well-rounded shoulder and deltoid, even though I don't go crazy on the deltoids themselves, period. I've been taking a lot of time off, so I've been kind of resting my body and recovering, but I always prioritize the side and mostly the rear. So load the workouts with the front, start with the rear, start doing rear deltoid sets first, and do a couple exercises for the rear deltoid before you start doing the side. And then at the end, you can always fill in with some front deltoid or ignore it and leave it alone for a couple weeks and see how your body creates more balance. It depends on how lopsided, it depends on how much work you have to do to catch the side and the rear up to the front. If you have a lot of work to do, you might want to back off it longer. And this is very common with bodybuilding. It's very common with people that their goal, the whole point is to create that well-rounded physique. You might not be a bodybuilder on stage, but you're definitely a bodybuilder, whereas you're trying to build and maximize the development of every muscle group so you can look and feel a certain way. Not only is that going to reduce your risk of injury, but it's just going to look better. It's just going to look better. If you're balanced, you can add back in that anterior deltoid. I would still always load your workouts more with side and rear because in general, with pressing movements and with all the activity during the day, you're going to have more activity in general on the front part of the shoulder. It's just going to happen. There's just going to be more shoulder activation from the front just during your daily life. The most important thing is that you create that aesthetic balance. That will help you create that physical balance, and that will help ensure that you're not only aesthetically more appealing to yourself and to others, and you're putting out a better package, and you're balancing out the body better. You're doing a more well-rounded, I would say, you're doing a more well-rounded job. You're performing your job in the gym for your body better. You're going to be healthier, and you're going to be safer. And one of the most important things I've always talked about is not getting injured. If you don't get hurt, guess what? You can keep consistent with your workouts. You can keep pushing harder and harder and harder. If you're getting hurt, you're on the DL, then you have to back off your training. And then guess what? You're going to go down the slide a little bit. Drop down sets, when should I use this? Good question. Drop sets, meaning you do as many as you can with one weight and then drop to a lower weight. I love drop sets. I love doing them, especially at the end of an exercise. You might not want to do them first set in the exercise because you're pretty much going to blow out the muscle. I am a big believer in not saving anything. I don't like half-ass sets. I don't like, save it for later or do that at the end. If you feel like doing it at the beginning, fucking do it at the beginning. Crush it. Just make sure you're depleting the muscle and you're lifting enough weights to stimulate muscle growth. If you start doing drop sets too early, you might stimulate too much type 1 fiber. You might do too much aerobic training for the muscles. I recommend drop sets generally at the end of the exercise, if not the end of the entire workout. It's a great way to completely obliterate and blast the muscle at the end and just completely, flatten it. Because it's higher rep, you'll flush the muscle full of blood. And before that, if you do the heavier weights earlier in the workout, you've gotten that overload stimulus that can help grow muscle. And at the end, you can just deplete it and just fry the muscle down to the bone. And in addition, shoulders are a great area to do more higher repetition. Generally, shoulders don't have to be, heavy weight for 6 reps, 8 reps. It's really, really, really good to do higher reps with shoulders. I'm not saying it's going to work for everyone, but there's a lot of shocking shoulder workouts that are great with isometric holds out to the side, like an iron cross with dumbbells for 15, 30 seconds, and repping out weights, doing extremely high rep sets like 60, 70 repetitions. There's a lot of badass balls-to-the-wall shoulder workouts that shock them into growth because there's a lot more endurance-type fibers in the shoulder because they're an area that gets frequently used during the day. Papa Swolenormous will stay for a few minutes after on Periscope and Facebook Live. Thank you for joining me on YouTube at Swolenormous, and thank you for checking in and listening to this episode on SoundCloud and iTunes. I'll stay for a few minutes. You might want to ask that question again because that's going to fade on Periscope. That's the only downside to Periscope is that sometimes the questions disappear. So I'll get to that in a moment. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you check out my Instagram, my Snapchat, both at Swolenormous. That way you can follow me through the day and also get some extra stories, some extra behind the scenes, and you'll know when everything gets posted. You can also check out my Facebook page, facebook.com/Swolenormous. I have a great video, Just Be You. It's my latest on my Spotlight series. I will require you to go watch it. At least watch it. Enjoy it. And if it hits you hard, you enjoy it. And it means something to you, share it to inspire others because it's a very powerful message and it's very important. It's something that I always think about every day as I do my own thing. You're going to have lovers, you're going to have haters, you're going to have people that are downright pieces of shit. But bottom line, you have to be yourself and live what's true to you. Thank you for joining me for episode 193. I'll see everyone tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern time. And as always, stay absolutely motherfucking swole. See you mañana for episode 194. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Peace.